Most golfers I play with in my play with the pro experiences or in pro-ams that I play make these three mistakes every time, and it costs them shots everywhere. And it's one of the easiest things you can start changing straight away tomorrow in your own golf game to get better at making more pars and more up and downs around the green. So I'm going to take you through what I did on this particular shot on the golf course. I'm going to stop at each point where there's some key decisions and key choices that I'm making that you can do as well to help you to get the ball to finish closer to the hole when you have these chip shots. So where am I? I'm on the 7th hole at Emerald Lakes, my home golf course, but it's a very common situation a lot of people will get in. I've left my approach shot short. Unfortunately, I clipped a tree on my approach play, and I'm probably about 30 metres short of the pin and about 15 to 20 metres short of the front edge of the green. And at Emerald Lakes, what we've got is a little slope that goes up the front, and then the green slopes from front to back. And this pin position was probably about middle to slightly back of the center of the green, and I was trying to get it close enough to make a par. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this video, and I'm just going to stop at the key moments, okay? And I'm just going to dive into detail a little bit more about what I was doing, because while I do just talk my way through it on the course, I didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of why I'm making this decision and why I'm doing it. So I'm going to stop it in those key points, and we'll come back and we'll just talk a little bit more about it. And hopefully then you can start to understand the value in doing this yourself and start to do it in your own golf game. So let's roll the video and have a look. Okay, so I just got very lucky. I went through the tree, but it did take a little bit of distance off my shot, but I'm okay. So what I'm trying to do here is I don't think I'm going to be able to run the ball through this grass all the way to the green. Okay, so if I just stop there, what are the things that are going to stop me from rolling the ball through the grass? Well, in these conditions, it was actually quite, it doesn't look like it, but it was quite damp and the grass was a little spongy and the ball wasn't going to roll very well through that, which is typical tropical environment type conditions. It was in the middle of our summer. It's quite wet most nights, and so the grass is very spongy and the ball's not going to roll very well through that. It'll be completely different down south in here in Australia, or in more summer conditions in winter grass and couch grass and things like that. It would actually roll a lot better. So it is one thing that I normally do, is to say, if you don't need to fly the ball, then don't fly it, run it along the ground. But this circumstance here, it was definitely something that I definitely needed to fly. So let's just dive in a bit more.
I definitely don't want to land it on the edge of the green because there's a big peak there.
Just quickly after that, I say there's a big peak right at the front of the green. And what I mean by that is if I was back over there, right at the front of the green, we've got the fairway grass going up and then the green grass coming down this side. And there's a couple of big things about this, about the landing spot, that I want to talk to about. So the first one is the main difference in the fringe grass and the green grass. And a lot of golf courses around the world, it's a very common thing that on this one in particular at my golf course, it's actually quite spongy and soft. And if my ball lands in that slope at all with any kind of backspin, it's going to really grab and stop. And then if I land on the green, it's going to be quite firm, right? Because the greens in Queensland and tropical environments are raised up and a lot of drainage, and the greens and the grass itself can be quite firm, even though the fringe grass is very soft. And that's definitely the case on this shot. So one of the things I didn't want to do is to try and land the ball right near the edge of the green and maybe just not quite get the contact right, or not quite judge my distance and finish a little bit short, hit the upslope and it just stops. Or if I just hit it a little bit harder than I want, it was going to hit on the hard green and then kick on a lot further. So I wasn't real keen to land this anywhere near the edge of the green, and neither should you. So that's something you should think about. Don't try and land it just a metre on the green with a lofted chip shot. Try and land it quite a few metres on the green and give yourself a margin for error, because with short game shots, what we're trying to do is we're trying to judge the distance, right? It's very rare that you ever hit it 5 feet right and 23 feet left. You're basically either making slightly off contact, or you're misjudging the size of your swing a little bit, and your dispersion pad is long past the hole and short. You know, if we had 100 balls, it'd be long and short and not very wide. It'd be like this oval shape. So what we're trying to do is, if we can get the same kind of reaction every single time out of 100 balls, then we'll try and land, say, 3 metres on the green instead of just 1 metre on the green. What you're going to have is a good reaction on that first bounce every time, and over time you're going to judge distance better, and therefore you're going to get the ball to finish close to the hole more often. So that's something to think about in terms of the different surfaces. But the other thing I'm talking about is a peak. You should never try and land on a peak. I see people doing this all the time. Oh, I'm just going to hit this little sand wedge and land it just on top of the hill there. And I start shaking my head. And this is something that Dave Peltz talks about when I first saw it in his book, The Short Game Bible, how he did a lot of studies on how many hundreds of shots and just tracked all the data about where the ball's finished. And once again, what we're talking about here is that we're trying to judge distance, right? So let's say, you're back over here and you're trying to land on a peak like that, right? Now, if you get it absolutely perfect, lands right on top of the peak, finishes next to the hole, happy days. So out of 100 shots, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to do that very often. And if you want to go and watch videos of Jason Day, Tiger Woods, and all these guys just trying to land a ball on a little tower 10 meters away, they'll do it 7 times out of 10, but they don't do it every time. Okay. And I'm pretty sure you're not Tiger or Jason Day. So if you're not that good, then you've got to give yourself a bigger margin for error, right? Because the problem is, let's say you get it wrong by chunking it a little bit or just not quite catching it properly. Or maybe you haven't made a big enough swing and you kind of know it, and it's going to be short anyway. So what happens now is that ball comes in and it hits this upslope and it pulls it up even more. And it might get over the hill, but it doesn't go far enough to get next to the flag. And then the opposite of that is you hit one a little bit too hard. So it's already probably going to go past the hole. But now what it does is it hits the downslope, shoots off even more and goes even further. And once again, that dispersion we talk about, long and short of the hole, is going to be bigger when you try and land it on a peak. So what's the rule? Well, ideally, you're trying to land on a flat part whenever you can. Now, I know that's not possible all the time. And if you do have a peak like I've got here, you've got 2 options. Either you want to run over it and then try and judge the distance by doing that, or like I'm choosing here because I don't like the way this ball's going to run through this grass, is that I'm trying to fly well and truly over it and land on the green on a much flatter spot, more predictable spot, predictable slope, and a much bigger margin for error for where my ball lands, right? So that's the big reason why landing spot is extremely important. And it's one thing that I see most golfers that I play with, and probably you, if you're watching this video, doing this all the time. So it's a really simple fix. Look for the flat or the opposite, at bottom of a valley, right? So sometimes we have to do that. We have to choose, do we want to land in the upslope or on the green or in the bottom of the valley? Hey, go for the bottom of the valley, because what you get is the opposite of this. If you hit one a little bit short from over here and it hits the downslope, it's going to kick on more. And if you hit one a little bit too hard and it hits the upslope, it's going to pull it up. And then your dispersion over here by the hole becomes much shorter. Okay, so long and short becomes better. So that's the way I want you to look at landing spots, and it's a very simple thing that you can start doing straight away. So I went big time into that, but I think it's very valuable information. Hopefully you go, yeah, I can start making that decision better. And once again, this is about you becoming the casino owner and having more shots finish closer to the hole more often. And particularly as you start to become a better golfer, that becomes more and more important, that you get your shots on the green closer to the hole so you can have less putts, because less putts most of the time is not about how good or bad a putter you are. It's how close to the hole you were. It determines whether or not you actually hold the putt. So let's dive in a little bit further and see what the next one is.
And the difference between the fringe grass and the green grass is quite dramatic if I land the ball on the 2 different surfaces. So what I'm going to try and do here is fly the ball a long way onto the green, 5 meters on the green. And that's okay because the pin's actually in the middle of the green and it's quite a long green, so I've got a bit of room here. What I'm going to do with this shot is really focus hard on how big a swing I need to make to hit my landing spot. So that's a big key with this type of shot, is working out your distances.
Okay, so that's something that I find a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking about, that either in their practice swings, they're just doing them for the sake of it, just kind of, they've always done it, so they do that. It's not really a discovery swing, or not really having a clear intention of if you want to hit to that landing spot there, that's what it should look and feel like, and you're tapping back into the memories that you've created in practice. So it's something that you definitely want to be incorporating into your short game shots, is how big a swing do I need to make with this club to hit the ball the distance I want. And that might be putting, it can be chipping, it can be bunker play, it can be wedge play, right? So anything that's not a full swing, you've got to start thinking that the size of my swing determines the size of my shot. Big swing, big shot, small swing, small shot. And the big thing you want to be thinking about mostly is you want to be thinking about size of backswing. It's like a pendulum. What you're doing is you're putting energy into the backswing and you're almost just letting it flow through on the other side. So you're just like lifting up a pendulum, let it drop and just let it swing through that way. So that's one thing that I notice a lot of people aren't really doing. They're not thinking about the implement that they are actually in control of, which is where am I hitting the ground with these practice swings so I can make sure I get the ball position in the right spot, and then how big a swing am I making with this club? Because we're not actually in control of the ball, we're in control of the golf club. So what we have to have our attention on more is the golf club. And when I listen to all the best short game players that I've ever listened to, something like Brett Rumford and all sorts of Australian guys, particularly here, I hear them talking about their attention is on what the club's doing with the ground and what's it doing through impact and how big a swing do I need to make to get the ball to go where I want it to go. They're not talking about the ball, not talking about the contact with the ball anywhere near as much as the contact with the ground. And so then once they know where they're hitting the ground and the size of swing they need to make, then all they have to do is set up with the ball in the right spot so that the ball gets in the way of that. So that's why ball position is so crucial as well. So that's something that I definitely would love to see you doing in your game. Think about the size of the swing, look at the hole, look at your landing spot, think, right, that's how big a swing I need to make. So let's dive in again and have a look at the next key ingredient for the shot.
So I'm picking the spot that I can see up on the green where I want to try and land it. Then I'm going to come on into a few practice swings. And after I do each swing, I'm going to be looking up to see where I want to land it. I want to get this clear intention to my subconscious part of my brain that said that's where I want the ball to go. Let that take over all sorts of things and not really consciously think too much about anything else.
Okay, so this is a really important last thing that I see, because most people are struggling with these chip shots, and I know you're probably doing this as well, is when I'm out there, they're kind of really nervous because they're not all that confident in this kind of shot, and then they kind of set up and the only place they're looking is down here like this. They're looking down at their feet, and you can see the tension building and the whole lot, and they never look back up again. They never look at the target. They never look where they want to land the ball. Now, if you think about that, if you were playing basketball, and you're going for a shot to the basket, do you think you'd be just looking down at your elbow and your arms? No. You're looking at the ring, trying to hold that. Quarterback, throwing the ball. He's looking where he wants that thing to go. He's not looking at what he's doing with his hand, right? What you've got to understand is through evolution as human beings, our brains and our bodies working away through imagery and memories of things that have happened in the past, and we can try and recreate those feelings and thoughts. And really, that's what makes a good golfer better than a bad golfer. They've had more memories of more shots and the results of those thoughts and feelings of what they were doing and those intentions than a bad golfer, So what we're trying to do here is you go through your whole process, you do your practice swings, go, right, great, I know where my ball position needs to be. And then the big one for me is making sure you look back up at your target, back down to the ball, and don't give yourself any time to think any conscious thoughts about anything else. You just look up, back down, swing away, really focusing on your intended landing spot with that club. It's not easy, and it takes some training, but the more you can do that, the better you'll get at your subconscious brain taking over things and getting the results to happen more often. So if you're not looking up at the target, if you're not creating a clear image and intention for your brain to produce that result, then you're probably going to have a lot of problems. Now, I know a lot of people, and myself included, I actually used to think there was something wrong with me because I used to listen to Greg Norman books and, read Greg Norman books, listen to Greg Norman books. Like, seriously, that'd be impressive. Oh, you can do it now. Audiobooks. No. What I used to do is I used to listen to him and he'd say, you got to see this shot and an image of it like a movie. And Jack Nicklaus was famous for saying that. And then seeing himself in this perfect movie of his swing from outside, and I'm like, what the hell? I got no idea what I'm doing. Is there something wrong with me? I can't do that. I didn't get it, but I did learn one time from a golf psychologist. I was listening to a podcast they were doing, and was talking about the problems that one of his players had on the European Tour. I think it was Carl Morris I was talking about. One of the European Tour players had the same problem, and what they did was they asked him to describe the shot out loud to them. And all of a sudden he got an image. And as soon as I did that, the very next thing, I described the shot to myself. I want to see the ball go about that high, land there. It's going to run around and finish next to the hole over there. All of a sudden, instantly, this little image and feeling and memory came to me of something similar in the past. And I was trying to recreate that. Now, that was very powerful. So that's something you might try as well. It's just to describe what the shot's going to look like. Okay, and it'll help you create this image and a feeling and tap back into some memories that you've had about it in the past. And it'll help you a big, big way. So let's watch the rest of it. See how we go.
So here we go.
So here I am doing my practice swings. You can see I'm mostly looking up at the target. Big look at the target right now. Back down to the ball. Not much time to go. And then whack, and I hit it. Now I chunked this one a little bit. But the beauty was,
Oh, so I caught a little bit chunky and it's landed a couple of meters short of where I want. And therefore, it's a couple of meters short. Oh, that's the way life goes.
so the thing with that is that because I caught it chunky, yes, it's not next to the hole. It's a couple of meters short, as I say. But if I had tried to land that near that, at the peak and near the edge of the green, I have landed here on that upslope, and I wouldn't be just a couple of meters short. I'd probably be 5 meters short. So that's what happens. We don't hit perfect shots all the time, and I definitely didn't do it here. But the result wasn't too bad. You know, from a couple of meters away, I'm probably going to average about 6 out of 10 on average, you know, from there. And it turns out when I went up and tried to hold this putt, I actually hold it. So from a few dodgy shots, hitting a tree on the way through, and then a chunky kind of chip shot, got saved by a good putt. And that's one of the things you need to say to yourself. You don't need to panic too much because you never know what's coming next. But if you can go through some of those key steps like that, you're going to find that you're going to pretty much shoot much better golf scores far more often, and the odds are going to be in your favour. And remember, I'm always about you becoming the casino owner and not the punter spending their entire life savings on black and hoping for the best. I want the odds to be in your favour. So if you'd like to see another video, which is a very good way of you preparing for a shot before you get to the chip shot, so like we're talking approach shots now, check out this video because it's going to dive deep into that. Cheers.